Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, jam-packed show for you today. So as you know, President Trump several days ago made an absolutely brilliant announcement. As I said on X, it's he's outmaneuvered the Democrats, and now he's on the verge of outmaneuvering the mullahs. He now has essentially said that Operation Epic Fury is over, that phase of the war is finished, it's done. Now the president is focused on opening up the Strait of Hormuz. And so he announced Operation Project Freedom. And at the heart of Project Freedom is that the U.S. Navy, along with the U.S. Air Force, is going to provide guidance and security to every commercial ship that has now been stranded in the Persian Gulf, going back since early April, all the way back since early March, end of February, early March, when this war began. And you now have hundreds and hundreds of ships stranded, absolutely stranded, who the crew is running out of food. They're waiting and sitting there. Their cargo is just, wasting away. And President Trump says that this is unacceptable. Lives are going to be lost soon because, as I said, they're running out of food. And this cargo is going to have to be delivered to their customers. And you cannot have the world's most important waterway, the most vital energy waterway, choked up and blocked by the mullahs. That this is extortion and blackmail on a global scale. And if this continues, energy prices, gas prices around the world are going to continue to soar, and it may even trigger a global recession. And so President Trump now says that they are going to be escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. In particular, they have carved out an entire lane along the coast of Oman. They have demined it over the last couple of weeks, and now they are going to be personally escorting ships along that lane all the way through the strait. They have sent in U.S. warships, U.S. destroyers, and already now multiple ships, especially U.S. flagged ships, but other ships as well, are now trickling through the Strait of Hormuz. And so what the president has now done is slowly but surely he is starting to break the Iranian stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, he's starting now to open it up bit by bit, pry it open with the U.S. Navy. Iran responded by firing cruise missiles and drones at U.S. warships. They were all intercepted and shot down. Trump then has warned the regime in Tehran, if one missile or drone strikes a U.S. warship, the United States will blow the Iranian regime off the face of the earth. So what Iran then did was they sent out speedboats, their fast attack boats, to harass ships, commercial ships, merchant ships, and Apache helicopters, as well as Seahawk helicopters were on our side, were unleashed, and 7 boats were blown up. So the mullahs then tried a different tactic. Now they are attacking the United Arab Emirates, which is clearly now a war of aggression. Iran now has launched a war of aggression against the UAE. They have launched multiple cruise missile, drone strikes on the UAE. Some were intercepted, helped by the Israelis, but some did get through. And they hit in particular a vital oil port hub that the Emiratis use to transport oil through a pipeline to get around the Strait of Hormuz. That critical oil infrastructure was hit, it's on fire, and it's been badly damaged. The government of the United Arab Emirates is now vowing that they are going to respond to Iran. They have an impressive air force. They may now join the United States and Israel should we resume the bombing. But the fact of the matter is, the ceasefire is for all intents and purposes over. Iran now is trying to widen the war by lashing out at their neighbors, in particular the United Arab Emirates. A huge mistake. And Trump now is beginning to break their blockade. Not quite, not 100%, but you can see now cracks are forming. And so President Trump announced last night that he is suspending Project Freedom. Now you would say, well, why would he do that? We're only a couple days in, and it's clearly working. It may be because the mullahs realize that their last leverage that they have, which is this blockade, is now starting to crumble. The ceasefire is crumbling, that there's no question about that. But that their blockade now is starting to slowly but surely unravel. And finally, maybe they are now coming to their senses and willing to make a deal. So President Trump, late last night, this was breaking news, said, I will temporarily suspend Project Freedom. We're not ending it. We're just going to temporarily suspend it because he's getting information from Pakistan, or as Obama would call them, Pakistan. And they are the mediators in this. And Trump says we may be close to a final negotiated settlement. We have to wait and see. But there's movement, a lot of movement on the part of the Iranians. So the world now is with bated breath, waiting to see what is going to happen. The blockade that we have imposed on all Iranian ports, which is cutting off their oil supply and cutting off their oil exports and their oil revenue, which is really economically strangling the regime, is still in effect. And the Iranians now are starting to feel real economic pain. For the first time now, reports are coming out of Iran. Listen to this. Soldiers are not getting paid. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, many of their members aren't getting a check. So now they're fighting for free. They're serving the regime for free. Let's see how much longer they're willing to serve this regime when there isn't money being deposited in their bank accounts. And the population of Iran is starting to feel it in terms of high inflation. Food is becoming very expensive. There is now unemployment is massive, rampant mass unemployment. Millions are falling into poverty. And there is real restlessness and hostility by ordinary Iranians on the streets, economic hostility, economic unhappiness. And they are now starting again to talk about protesting against the regime. President Trump, in an interview, said that they are now going to start supplying the Iranian people with guns. He is very ambivalent. He was asked point blank. They're very upset about inflation, about hunger, starvation starting to take hold, how food has become so expensive and increasingly is getting hard to get. And many are talking about protesting as they did several months ago when 42,000 were slaughtered. Trump said, look, I'm torn on this. part of me says, of course, I want them to rise up and overthrow the mullahs, and this thing is over. But I don't want unarmed, innocent, defenseless civilians to basically be cannon fodder or machine gun fodder for the IRGC and their paramilitary, the Basij. They're just going to, with AK-47s, he says you get hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets, they're just going to get mowed down. So he says what we want to do is we want to start arming them, giving them basically their own Second Amendment, as he called it. And so guns now, he says, are starting to be sent in. In parts of Iran, the CIA is training now some of these Iranian protesters and dissidents. Okay, very dramatic developments now in the war with Iran. Actually, really, it's not even a war now. It's changed from a bombing missile campaign, obviously Operation Epic Fury, which now is over. President Trump and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, announced that they have given official notice to Congress saying that as far as they're concerned, Operation Epic Fury is done. We are now in a different phase of this conflict, and it is now a standoff over the Strait of Hormuz. And what we are now watching is a battle of wills between the Ayatollahs, the IRGC, the Iranian regime, and President Trump and the United States over who will control the strait, and will Iran's closure of the strait or blockade of the strait be finally broken. And it now appears cracks are definitely appearing. U.S. warships now are starting to escort some ships out. Iran now is desperately trying to retain leverage, and they are launching attacks which so far have struck the United Arab Emirates. They have hit oil facilities. They did hit a few ships. One in particular, a South Korean vessel. They had a direct hit. Some crew members were injured. There was a big fire on that ship. And because of this, that has frightened off other vessels from even attempting to try to cross the strait. So as I talk to you now, hundreds and hundreds of ships are still anchored and stranded in the Persian Gulf, many of them for months. They are running out of food. They're running out of supplies. Trump now wants to bust and break that stranglehold that the Iranian regime has imposed, and he's now sent in warships, U.S. warships, U.S. missile-guided destroyers, to start to open it up and provide escorts along a defensive shield that they have created on one massive lane in the Strait of Hormuz, as I said in my opening monologue, along the coast of Oman. So surely, slowly but surely, Trump is starting to pry open that blockade. And yesterday, out of the blue, he said, I'm temporarily suspending Project Freedom because he believes now that there has been massive movement by the Iranians on the negotiating front. So clearly now the mullahs are feeling it now on every side. And there is an internal battle, we know this for sure, between, I don't know if you can call them moderates. Nobody's a moderate in that regime. It's crazy and crazier. But let's put it this way. Pragmatists who are starting to realize that Iran's cause is hopeless. And let's try to salvage a deal which preserves the regime and enables them to continue to survive. And the hardline IRGC, who believe that they can continue in this standoff, this test of wills with Donald Trump, they have openly said their strategy is to keep this going until the midterms, because the Democrats are their biggest allies. And they believe if they can just hang on until the midterms, have gas prices, energy prices sky high, this will help the Democrats sweep back to power, and then the Democrats will undermine Trump defund the war, and essentially have Iran win it by just outlasting and outweighting Trump. So the IRGC says all we got to do is wait till November. Stall, delay, hang on, obfuscate, keep harassing shipping, keep launching missiles and drone strikes, keep it all clogged up in the Strait of Hormuz, and eventually Trump will be defeated in the midterms because gas will be at $5 or $6 a gallon, and then the Democrats will come back in, and then they will cut President Trump's knees off in his ability to continue this operation in Iran. So the Democrats are becoming now the biggest allies of the Iranian mullahs, and the hardliners, are waiting for the midterms to basically, for them, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. So these are now the battle lines. Listen now to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He filled in for Caroline Leavitt yesterday. She's on pregnancy leave. And I mean, he took it to the media. And he warned the Iranian leaders. Trump is serious. He's going to do whatever it takes to win this war. And if it means sending in U.S. warships and destroyers to escort ships one by one, we will break this blockade once this closure of the Strait of Hormuz. We will break it once and for all. You will lose. The question is, do you want to do it the easy way, the hard way, the short way, or the long way? Mike, do I have time to play the cut? All right, I'm going to play it on the other side, and then I want to start taking phone calls. I want to ask all of you, is there now light at the end of the tunnel? Or are the Iranians just dragging President Trump along? Are they just playing for time, kicking the can down the road? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly, my friends. The best way to listen to the Kuhner Report, as you know, is on the iHeartRadio app. And as we've been playing now for the last, 3-4 weeks now, we've launched something brand new, Kuhner's Talk Back Tit for Tat. It's quickly becoming one of our most popular segments. You just look for the red microphone in the upper right-hand corner of the app. You leave a message for me, the Kuhner Man, or for Sandy, for Mike. Agree, disagree, respond, react. Anything goes. So leave your talkbacks anytime during the week, and every Monday in the final segment, we will play the best ones on the air. So download the iHeart app, hit that red microphone, and join Kuhner's Talkback Tit for Tat. Okay, listen now to Marco Rubio telling the Ayatollahs, the IRGC, it's now over. It's over. You've lost, we've won. The sooner you accept that fact, the sooner life can return to normal. Roll cut 1, Mike.
The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says. And if they test him, ultimately they will lose. The hard way, the easy way, the long way, the short way, they will lose.
And this may be what is happening now. Again, I don't want to jump the gun. Trump has stopped actions before to give negotiations a chance because he obviously wants to do things in a more peaceful manner. He wants to save as many lives as possible. So as he said this repeatedly, to me, war is always the last option. Using the military is the last option, not the first option. So if we can have a peaceful negotiated settlement, I always prefer that. So he has suspended Project Freedom for now, temporarily, on the basis of, he says, Pakistan has come to him saying the Iranian government seems to be agreeing to a package that Trump says is very interesting. So we'll find out probably by the end of today. But listen now to Rubio. And he was very candid. He made the point that the regime itself is now split. There are essentially two factions. And finally, he says, look, he goes, I'm going to be honest with you, they're half insane. We're dealing with people who are not right in the head. And that's what's making negotiations very difficult. But for all intents and purposes, they have lost militarily, they have lost the Navy, they've lost their Air Force, their military, their ability to launch ballistic missiles has now been severely degraded. Their air defenses have been shattered. Their economy now is crumbling right in front of their eyes. Their people are going hungry. Inflation is ravaging their society. And we are starting to bust open the Strait of Hormuz. They're collapsing on all fronts. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
The time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system. And apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least, they're insane in the brain. And so we need to address that, and it's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. But Iran must accept the reality of this situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them, but ultimately good for the world.
He's cool. Look, just super quick, and because I want to go to the phone lines. The phone lines are jammed. I think Trump is giving them too much of a carrot. You have the stick and the carrot. Well, he's been hammering them. But he's put some juicy carrots on the table for them that any sane, sensible leadership at this point would take. You get to survive. That's huge. So in other words, no, we're not going to insist on regime change. And the other one is they're going to lift sanctions, all sanctions. So Iran can sell its oil on the international market in a way that it hasn't been able to do since 1979. They'll be a full-fledged member of the international community. So economically, they can rebuild and rebuild quickly. To me, I think he's giving too much, but that's that's up to him. I wouldn't give him that much, but let that go. In other words, be sensible. I mean, we're offering you, here's the olive branch. What olive branch? I mean, here's the hand. So you're going to trade with the world unsanctioned. Investment will come back to your country. You can sell all the oil now you want. It's not going to be constantly sanctioned with limits and quotas, and you have to sell it on the black market at a reduced price. And no, you can sell it, at the full price to anyone you want. Economically, you can be back on your feet within 5 years. And you get to survive. All you've got to do is give up your nuclear ambitions. Period. Full stop. That's it. No more bomb, ever. And after the military defeat, shellacking, the devastating military success of the United States and Israel, you're crazy not to take this deal. That's why Rubio says, look, they're insane in the brain. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. You've got a very sophisticated population. Persia, Persian culture, Persian civilization, run essentially by 7th century medieval barbarians. That's the fundamental contradiction in Iran. A sophisticated people led by madmen. And the madmen, or at least some of them, they want to continue the war. They don't want this to stop because they think, Allah, 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 Allah. They think, wait it out through the summer, wait it out through the fall, and the Democrats will win because of the high gas prices, because the Strait of Hormuz will remain in some way, shape, or form clogged up or blocked. And then Trump's going to be in big trouble. He's going to have impeachment to deal with. Forget fighting a war. So really, the strategy of the mullahs is the Democrats will come to the rescue. All we've got to do now is outlast Trump over the next 5 months. So this is where we stand. My question to you, A, do you support Trump's effort now to unblock the Strait of Hormuz through Project Freedom, where we now are going to guide and escort commercial ships stuck there, stranded there, through the strait? Number one. Number two, do you believe the mullahs now will finally capitulate? Or is this not another delaying tactic and they're just stringing us along and playing us for fools? 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are loaded. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. You're going to kick us off, Arthur. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Well, I would hope that there would be peace, but there's never been peace with a regime such as this. And of course, they would say and do anything to keep their regime in place. They have never kept one agreement that they've made. They got everything handed to them, and a few $100 billion of money from Obama, who was their best friend, and especially with Valerie Jarrett and his ear. The Israelis have been dealing with one deal after another with the Palestinians since 1950, and it culminated on October 7th with the most barbaric attack on any country by a bunch of savages. And these people have been screaming, "Death to America! Death, death, death!" That's all they want to put on anybody. And the only answer is to get rid of these people, put the Shah's son back in power, and that's the only way anything is going to change in Iran. And if we do that, then we have a friend for Israel, and we have a great friend back again for this country, which would be absolutely something spectacular in the Middle East. It would be a great thing for this country. But these people will do and say anything. And you're right. I mean, if the Democrats and they will do everything to turn around and get power back, and then it's all over for us. They will support. They're against Israel, and they're for these people in Iran. And the only thing they know, and I don't know why he stopped. And I wish he would not do negotiations in the press. I mean, only an idiot does that. Okay, because you back yourself in the corner. But if he turns around and allows them to stay in place, then we'll be back. We'll be back here again. I mean, they have a lot of oil, and oil makes you very powerful. Okay, because it generates a lot of fuel, because the world runs on fuel. I don't know what he's thinking, but there's never been an agreement that these people ever kept. The Egyptians never kept under Sadat and Nasser. They didn't keep their deals with Israel, and the Palestinians sure.
Arthur, can you do me a favor? I want you to finish your point. I'm up against a hard break. I want to come back to Arthur's central point. Okay, again, just if you're just waking up or just tuning in, President Trump now announced last night, big breaking news, that he is temporarily suspending Project Freedom, basically this new campaign to end the standoff in the Strait of Hormuz, in which now U.S. ships, the U.S. Navy, warships, destroyers, our Apache helicopters are going to be guiding and in some cases escorting commercial vessels from countries all over the world through a defensive shield that they have carved out in the Strait of Hormuz. They've demined it, and it's apparently clear of mines. It's safe along the coastline of Oman. And now they're trying to guide these ships through the strait, thereby ending Iran's attempt to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. If that succeeds, it's over. Iran has no more leverage left, and basically the mullahs will have lost the war. Trump announced that there has been significant movement on the negotiation front, so much so that he has asked for Project Freedom to now be temporarily suspended. Our blockade of the Iranian ports, anything coming in and out of Iran, continues. So we are continuing to cut off their exports, their oil exports, which is starving the regime of money. So the blockade, our blockade is still there. It's not going anywhere, but Project Freedom has been temporarily halted because Trump says there's very significant concessions being made on the negotiating table. So we shall see. I want to go back to Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Arthur makes the point, ever since the Islamic Republic in 1979 seized power in a coup, they've never honored a single agreement or deal. They have broken every agreement. So why should we negotiate with them now? It isn't worth the paper it's written on. Trump is making a serious mistake. He should resume the bombing and finish the mullahs off once and for all. Arthur, please pick up where you left off. Is in your view, is that Trump's central mistake? That he's trusting the mullahs to honor an agreement when in the end they've never honored any agreement?
Yes, and one thing I can tell you, Jeff, that one thing life has taught me, leopards never change their spots. Once a terrorist, always a terrorist. And we've also learned through history, when people tell you that they want to kill you, that they want to destroy you, believe them. And it sounds like, why are we calling off Project Freedom? I mean, who's winning here? If we're winning, why are we conceding to them? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, they should be crawling on their hands and knees to us, but they're not. I mean, we turn around and we shouldn't get to the table to them. And if he wants to do some, until every ship, from every international ship in the Hormuz is out of there. Period. Before you sit down, what are we making concessions for?
Arthur, as always, thank you very much for your call. I'm just curious, is Trump being a little bit preemptive in pushing negotiations? We're holding all the cards. We've broken their military. Their economy now is in a death spiral. We've now blockaded them. Yes, we want to get these ships through. Obviously, as Trump is right. This is a humanitarian crisis. Some of these some of these ships are running low on food and supplies. They've been there for 2-3 months. And of course the products, the oil in particular, and the liquefied natural gas, that's got to get to market. So we've got to get them through. So should Trump resume the bombing and continue with Project Freedom and just break Iran's closure once and for all? That's their stranglehold. Break it. Or should he give peace, or a negotiated peace, a chance? 617-266-6868. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are we doing, sir?
Very good, very good. We had a bit of a family emergency yesterday, Larry. Anyway, but it's all's well that ends well. So my sister-in-law was visiting us, and we thought she was having a heart attack in the middle of the night. She has a bad heart, had a stroke 6 years ago, and she was feeling tremendous pain on the left side of her chest. She almost passed out. And her daughter was worried, my niece, I was worried, Grace was worried. It's Grace's older sister. So we had to call an ambulance. Ambulance came. They took her to the hospital. We went with her. Anyway, it was not a heart attack, thank the Lord. So it may be pneumonia, but it's not a heart attack. But we had a bit of a family scare. That's why I wasn't on the air yesterday. But anyway, we had a bit of a family emergency. But it's, I said, her name is Anne-Marie. I said to Anne-Marie, it's not a stroke. It's not a heart attack. That's all that matters. I mean, I know pneumonia is not nice, but you take antibiotics and you'll be back to your old self again. So all's well that ends well. But anyway, too much private information there, Larry. Overall, things are good. My friend, Air Force veteran, longtime observer of politics, what do you make now of this standoff in the Strait of Hormuz? And should Trump have suspended Project Freedom? What say you?
So you're seeing a couple things going on simultaneously. You've got Trump has this amazing effect of bringing out people's true selves. Can you imagine one person trying to improve a company, generally trying to improve it, and all the grifters do everything they can to stop them from improving the company and making it better? That's the Democrat Party. Anything Trump tries to do, they try to destroy. They choose the wrong thing every time, and they side with America's enemies every time. That should be obvious to the general public. So they were hoping, praying that Trump would go day 61 in a bombing campaign, so they have a reason to say, well, he broke the congressional rules of, you got 60 days before you have to go to Congress for permission to do what you're doing. We're going to impeach him. That's off the table because that ended right at the 60-day mark. Like you said last night on Twitter, he's changed the mission slightly, so it's a whole new clock. That's irritating them, right? Now, you were saying, I get where you're saying with the carrot. You can give the biggest carrots and put them on the table and make it look like you're doing stuff, knowing full well they're so crazy they won't accept it. And how does that make you look?
Oh, it makes you look at the most generous person in the world.
What kind of dictator does that, Jeff? What kind of king does that?
Oh, you're dead on. No, Larry, you're absolutely dead on. No, Larry, look, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world to finish your point. What to me is incredible, and I think this is what's shocking, and I think it's brilliant on Trump's part on so many levels. Word has gotten out on the Iranian street. Okay, I know they're blocking the internet, and by the way, it's heartbreaking. You hear these stories. People now, their wages are so low and inflation is so high that they have to make a decision. Do I buy eggs to feed my family, or like a chicken, like a little chicken to feed my family? Or do I spend my money to get internet service on the black market so I know what's really happening? And you see them being interviewed like in newspapers, and they're like, I need to know what's going on. So my belly's going to be empty, but at least my mind will be full. Long story short, Larry, word has gotten out on the streets all over the country. Trump has offered to lift all sanctions, plus help with the rebuilding of Iran, plus to help Iran become part of the international economic community again. Full, completely. And they're looking like, and you guys aren't taking the deal? Are you crazy? Because you guys want your nuclear bomb? Which, by the way, the Iranian people, one of the reasons why they're so against the regime, when they talk about bombing Israel, and Israel, of course, would bomb them, or, starting a potential nuclear war, who do you think is the collateral damage? When they want their 12th Imam to come back and the end of days and the fulfillment of the Shia prophecy, it's going to be the Iranian people. They're like, whoa. We're the ones that are going to get burned alive in this. So they're against the bomb because they're going to be the ones sacrificed in a potential nuclear war. And now they're finding out Trump is offering to lift all sanctions, which means we can have a normal, good life. That's what's now. It's like Trump is winning the propaganda war because it's getting out there. And now, and Larry, the big one, and I think this is the one. That's why I'm looking at this time. It may be different. They may be serious. Why? It's when Trump let the cat out of the bag. And I don't know if he should have said it, frankly. But when he came out and said, oh, they have no guns. the protesters, the innocent Iranian people. I'm not going to tell them to rise up. I tell them to rise up, they're going to get slaughtered. They're defenseless. They're unarmed. But we're getting guns in now. He goes, we're getting guns in, and soon they're going to have guns. And they're going to fight like everybody can fight. And now, if that's true, and I believe it is, the mullahs now have an internal insurgency to deal with. Now they've got a real problem. So you combine everything, and, it really is. It's true what Rubio, they're insane in the brain. That's why there is a faction that says, make the damn deal. Just sign the damn deal. And then you've got these hardliners. And Larry, what does it say that these IRGC hardliners are telling the world, no, we're going to wait this out. And it doesn't matter how many more people suffer or how many more people die or how much the price of gas or oil goes up and how much the world, the pain they're going to impose on the world, the economic pain. Because you know what our ace in the hole is? The Democrats. They're openly saying it. Our allies are the Democrats. We need them to come to power in November. They come to power, they're riding to our rescue. So we have a party now in the United States of America. To me, this is treason. That the enemy, the Islamic Republic, the regime that throws gays and lesbians off of rooftops, that enslaves women, a true fascist regime, one of the truest fascist regimes since Hitler, an Islamo-fascist regime, if I've ever seen one, anti-Semitic to the bone, anti-American to the bone, anti-Western to the bone. And the Democrats are allied with them. I'm almost speechless. There's nothing left to say. What do you say to this? Larry, what say you?
Yeah, a couple of points, if you allow me. We just had Star Wars Day. They call it May the 4th. So I want you to think about this. There's a scene in the original movie where the Princess Leia tells Darth Vader, says, the tighter you squeeze your grip, the more these factions will slip through your fingers, more of the resistance, right? So they're squeezing. This is an extinction burst. I don't think it's just out of anger because of the UAE is who they are. The UAE just announced they're leaving OPEC. OPEC is a cartel that allowed Iran to have a stranglehold over there. Venezuela left. UAE announced they're leaving. That is on the verge of breaking up. That's their leverage there. All right. Now, they are so hell-bent on, like you said, keeping their people in the dark, using propaganda, using gaslighting. They played themselves. I don't know if you caught this. So they revealed this memorial wall of all the great leaders that Israel and America killed. And on the wall in the center is the big picture of the Ayatollah and all his minions around him. Someone noticed it. The one who's supposed to be in charge right now is on that memorial wall as well. They've been saying that he's alive and well. And up in the corner, you see the son, who's supposed to be in charge. He's on the memorial wall. So they just shot themselves in the foot by showing that he's dead. And I'm not big. I get where you're saying with the, some people are worried about arming them and the CIA getting involved. But Trump is right. Obama had, they tried rising up. Obama had the chance to do the right thing and help them, and they got slaughtered for it. So people keep saying, well, why don't the people rise up? Why don't the people rise up? This is because America, before Trump, has a history of letting them down. They try to rise up. We cross our hands behind our back, says, nope, we can't help you, and they get slaughtered. And then they get slaughtered. And they go, well, if you keep getting slaughtered when you try to stand up, you're not going to stand up. So he's got a point, It's like, no, I'm not going to let him get slaughtered.
Oh, I agree with you. No, Larry, I thought it was very humane on the part of Trump and very realistic. He basically, look, it was very candid on his part. He said, look, they have risen up multiple times. The big one was under Obama. They really had the regime on the ropes. And Obama abandoned them. He betrayed them. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And we didn't send them any weapons. We didn't even give them moral support. We gave them nothing. And they got mowed down like sheep. They got slaughtered. And then they rose up again, and they got slaughtered. And then they rose up again, and they got slaughtered. And Trump is like, I'm not going to tell them now to rise up. So what, they'll get slaughtered again? I'm not going to have that on my conscience. These are brave, courageous, patriotic people, many of them very young. University students, college students, young women, young men, mothers, fathers. And I'm just going to say, what, be senseless? Stand there and just allow yourself to get mowed down by AK-47s? No. That's why he says, I want them. And on one hand, of course, they rise up, they fall. The mullahs fall. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them guns. In fact, he said Second Amendment style. They're going to get guns. So now they're not going to be unarmed, they're going to be armed. And they need a little bit of training. And then he says they'll be as effective as any fighting force you've ever seen. And then it's easy for the mullahs to slaughter a defenseless woman. But when she's got her own AK-47 and she's a little bit trained to use it, now I'm not so sure that they're going to be so tough. Because they're a bunch of bullies. And on top of it all, they're not even getting paid now. Now they're not even getting that paycheck. So, look, the pragmatists are right. If you want to save the regime and keep yourself in power and live to fight another day, take the damn deal. Like, you have to be the world's biggest imbecile not to take this deal. But you got the IRGC. And Larry, you nailed it. It now looks like that son is probably dead. So what that means in plain English is we're not even dealing anymore with the theocratic regime, which, by the way, is better, bad as it was, better than what we have now. Because now there's no cleric to mediate anything, to slow it down. Clerics tend to be a little more cautious. They tend to be a little, little more, let's be careful. No, this is now the IRGC. These are the hard liners. These are the Hitler in the bunker types. And that's the split now in the Iranian leadership. And Trump now is trying to exploit that split. So we'll see what happens. Look, Larry, to me, this is poetic justice. If the pragmatists say we want a deal, and Trump gets to sign a deal, and then the IRGC turns around and says this is a betrayal, you may actually see a civil war within the regime itself. And that would be poetic justice. Let them slaughter each other, and then the people will rise up and take over. So we'll see what's going to happen, but there's no question now. We are living in a very fascinating times. This is history in the making. And Trump now believes we're approaching the end game. Larry, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. And Trump is 1,000% correct. Who controls the Strait of Hormuz wins the war. I know he wants to get the enriched uranium that's still buried underneath the ground, obviously, and Rubio addressed that yesterday. But the only leverage that the mullahs still have, that the regime still has, is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. You take that away, it's over. 617-266-6868 is the number. Wednesday, 7:20-ish. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Democrat Chicago Alderman William Hall when during a press conference following the closing of Walgreens around Chicago, due to rampant crime and violence, he calls for criminal charges against the company.
Walgreens should be charged with first-degree corporate abandonment. Yes. It should be a crime the way they're treating our elders. Yes. It should be a crime the way they're treating our families.
So that's pretty crazy. But here's the question. Is he trolling here or is he being serious?
No,
I mean, what's the problem with Walgreens closing stores due to theft and violent crime?
He's a Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders Democrat. He's not trolling. He's crazy. He's telling the truth. So think about how insane and absurd these people are. So they keep breaking into Walgreens and cleaning the place out. They just keep stealing and stealing and stealing to the point that there's nothing left on the shelves. And Walgreens is like, we're losing, we're losing our shirt on this store. We're losing money hand over fist. So no, we're going to shut it down. And by the way, it's the same alderman who says defund the police, go soft on crime, don't prosecute shoplifting. So now they say, well, okay, we can't do business like this. We're not in business to lose money. We're in business to make money. So he gives the green light to loot the Walgreens and other stores. And then when they say, okay, we're going to leave, we're going to sue them. How dare you leave the community? Well, you want soft on crime. You don't want to prosecute shoplifting. You don't want to put police to arrest people. This is what happens. It's called reality. Oh, my God. Mike, I got to tell you, man, seriously, just when you thought Democrats couldn't be any stupider, I'm telling you, my God, are they stupid? That's the scary thing. I wish he was trolling. No, this guy's serious. He doesn't want to blame the criminals or himself and his policies. He's blaming Walgreens. Like, what do they do? I'm sorry, what are they now, a charity? Like, is Walgreens now? Yeah, sure, come on in, steal, take it all. We're here to lose money. Ay. Okay, anyway, okay. So, truth or troll? Chicago alderman, Democrat, obviously a radical Democrat, wants to bring criminal charges against Walgreens. Because, God forbid, they close the store due to high theft rates. Now, is he serious? A, truth. He's serious as a heart attack, Jeff. B, nah, he's just trolling. He's just BSing and trying to make a name for himself. Is it A, truth, B, troll? You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner. You can also vote via X. And yes, I was active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ken.
Good morning it is. Best wishes for your loved ones and the family, that the health gets better.
Thank you. Yeah, my sister-in-law's feeling better, knock on wood. She gave us a real scare yesterday. But as I said, all's well that ends well. So she's good, we're good.
And I think the world is good. You know, I like to say winning, winning, winning. Last week I did it 7 times. I don't have a count that's large enough today. I mean, their time is done. Let's be serious. He's carefully and methodically cornering a rabid animal, which is what the regime is. They got nowhere to go. And I just got so many good songs ringing in my ears. Don't worry, be happy. Like, literally, if every time I come on, your producer wants to play that song, I'm happy, because that's the way I feel. There's so much good going on. And
Ken, do me a favor. Can you hang on? President Trump now orders a pause in Project Freedom. He says there have been significant progress made on the talks with the Iranian leadership. And he says, you know what, we may be close to a deal. And he wants to give negotiators a chance to finalize a potential negotiated settlement. We shall see. In the midst now of this pause in Project Freedom and the possibility of a negotiated settlement, oil prices have plunged. It's dropping like a stone. So clearly investors are signaling they want the war to end. And if the war does officially end, you're going to see the price at the pump start to go down fast. And obviously that's a big reason why Trump wants to end this war. He does not want to go into the midterms with, say, $5 a gallon gas. He knows that's going to give the Democrats a lot of ammunition to use against him. And the mullahs now maybe are starting to realize they cannot hang on all the way to November. At least a section of the leadership, a faction of the leadership may be coming to their senses. Listen now to Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that under Project Freedom, what they have now done is they have created a lane that has been completely demined, escorted now with American ships and American air power. And slowly but surely, they're breaking the stranglehold that the mullahs tried to impose on the Strait of Hormuz, and commercial ships, vessels that have been sitting there, many of them for months, are now starting to trickle through. In other words, they're starting to break that chokehold that Tehran was imposing on the Strait. If they break that chokehold, they have no leverage left. It's over, game, set, and match. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they're talking, let's make a deal. You want to negotiate while you still have some leverage. When you've lost all your leverage, you're finished at the negotiating table. Listen now to Marco Rubio. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
So the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now. What that may lead to in the future is speculative. I'm not going to speculate about what it would take or what it would do. But look, the message to Iran, these guys are facing, they are facing real catastrophic destruction to their economy, generational destruction to their economy, generational destruction to the wealth of their country, imposed on themselves by the actions that they're taking. They should check themselves before they wreck themselves in the direction that they're going.
He's completely right. And let me just say one other thing, because I want to go back to the phone lines. And I don't want to get too technical, but this is so important. The problem now, because of the blockade that Trump imposed, which I think when the history books are written, is going to go down as one of the most brilliant military maneuvers in the history of American warfare. It's going to go up there in terms of its brilliance, maybe not its impact, but its brilliance, like D-Day or the landing at Incheon by MacArthur, which really saved the Korean War. South Korea was almost finished. And then MacArthur made that spectacular landing at Incheon and then pushed the North Korean and the communist forces back across the 38th parallel. What the blockade has done, it not only has choked and strangled the Iranian economy and cut off their ability to export oil, and you're saying, well, they get no money. That's true. But now they have a bigger problem. The wells in Iran, like most other countries that are big oil producers, you don't just turn them on and off. It's a very sophisticated thing to run an oil refinery and have an oil infrastructure. The wells have to keep turning and turning and turning and turning. So the problem is, this is now the crisis the Iranians are facing. They have so much extra capacity oil because they can't send it out. They can't sell it. They can't put it out onto the market because it's being blocked by the United States Navy. So now they're putting it in storage facilities in Iran. But they're running out of storage facility. So now what do? They're now about to hit the point where they're going to have to shut in their oil wells. I mean, just shut them. Like, just shutter them. And once you shutter them, you do serious damage to your oil fields. As he puts it, it's generational damage to your oil fields. It will take you years and years and years to be able to get oil freely flowing from the ground again. So it's not just a question of you're starving the regime, important as that is, and now they can't pay their troops, and they can't pay their, your bureaucrats, and they can't pay their soldiers, and they can't pay their employees. And you've got now, inflation, and you've got food shortages, and so you've got a restive, angry, hostile population. Okay, all of it important, no question. But you're going to do, as he put it, generational damage to your oil wells, your oil infrastructure, your oil fields. You're not going to be the same kind of oil producer that you were before the war. So it's like Trump is tightening the economic noose around their neck. And that's why Rubio, he's almost pleading with them. Again, it's the way Trump did a while back when he said, you bastards, like, what's wrong with you? Just, as he put it, you stupid bastards, just sign the damn negotiated deal. Like, what's wrong with you? That's what he's saying. This is generational wreckage. This is wreckage of an economy that will take you almost, a generation to recover from. Like, hello. Don't let your arrogance, your pride, your fanaticism, get in the way of what's good for your country, because you're going to have an economy that's going to be shattered. And your oil, which is the lifeblood of your economy, shattered. 617-266-6868. Think of it as this way. It's a vice grip now. The blockade is like a vice grip. And you just keep tightening it, and eventually, pop. I mean, you just break. You crack. And that's what Trump is doing. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. All right, Mike, who do you want me to go to? We got Ken in New Hampshire. We lost him for a while. Okay, Ken, we got you back. So you're happy? You believe now Trump is winning? It looks like he is. And you're saying he's now cornered the Iranian IRGC into he's now got them cornered like a rabid rat or rabid animal. And now he's systematically now tightening the noose around them. Ken, do you think this war will be over soon?
I think this month is the most likely, and what's going to be the next trigger within days, if not no more than a week or so, is the IRGC is going to splinter. It's inevitable. Somebody's going to get the idea of, hey, guys, we're not going to survive. Why not? Or if we continue down this path, why don't a group of us take it over and take the deal? So that's what I think is most likely in Iran. And, Jeff, are you following what's going on in Russia? Putin is holding up. He's got a coup going on. And did you catch what happened in Indiana last night? Oh, the Rhinos got their comeuppance. They lost primary after primary after primary after primary, refusing to redistrict.
No, you're right. No, Trump destroyed all the Rhinos. No, you're right. They lost every primary. These were all MAGA conservatives, Trump Republicans who won. Trump is angry at the Rhinos for not putting forth a redistricting map that would help Republicans pick up seats. And so he backed every MAGA candidate against the Rhinos, and they got slaughtered. They got absolutely slaughtered. So, no, Trump is on a roll. No question about it now. He's on a roll. Ken, as always, thank you very, very much for that call. Tommy in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Tommy.
Hey, I called in a few weeks ago, and if you remember, I was the one who said what the Trump administration needs to do is start dropping in pallets of semi-automatic rifles and weapons and dropping them in the urban areas, because there's 7 different ethnic groups in Iran. The very rural people are the ones that support the administration. It's a very complicated society, but the point being is that they've got to be able to take up arms and take on the Revolutionary Guard. Now, I want, if Bill in Sudbury is listening, if we go back to 1980 when Iraq invaded Iran and there was the Iran-Iraq War, Bill, Iran used 8-year-old boys to go through minefields that the Iraqi army set up to use them as minesweepers. These are the kind of people that you're dealing with. Bill, are you listening? So here's the point. They're inhumane people. And I don't know how many men that they lost in that war back then, Jeff. But that's who you're dealing with. And unfortunately, white liberals in this state cannot get it through their thick friggin' heads of how evil these people are. And I truly believe that Obama wanted Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. And all I can tell you is that during the Bill Clinton years, when I used to listen to National Public Radio, as I like to call it, National Public Bunghole, there used to be people in Boston that would say, well, who are we to tell Iraq? Remember how we had the no-fly zones over Iraq during the Clinton administration? They used to say on NPR in Boston, who are we to tell Iraq they cannot have a nuclear weapon? You know, I mean, do you let an 8-year-old boy have an AK-47 in Foxborough and go out and shoot in his backyard? Of course not. That's just common sense. And these are the kind of fools that we're dealing with in this state. And I would love to hear some progressive liberal to call in and say where Tom from Brockton has his head up his backside. Anyway, that's all I have to say,
Jeff. Tom, look, you've destroyed the left. In 30 seconds, you've destroyed them. And the dirty secret is, and it's all been exposed now, again, this is one of the many reasons I'm so grateful for Trump. He's done so many things he's done so well, but one of them is he has really exposed and flushed out, unmasked, who the left and what the left truly is, who they really are and what they're truly all about. And the mirages, the illusions, the lies, it's all now been punctured. Bill in Sudbury is rooting for the mullahs. He called up the show a couple of weeks ago. He wants Iran to win. Just like most of the moonbats in Massachusetts, just like, frankly, the Democratic Party. Now, that's all you need to know. And deep down, they don't care if Iran gets the bomb. Because they so hate their own country, and they so hate the West, that they believe, like Obama, that radical Islam should get the bomb. It's a form of suicide. And so we have to confront that. There's a point where people are so self-hating and so self-loathing that they're willing to die. And that's what you're seeing now with the left in Europe. Look, it's the left in Europe that have allowed the Muslims to pour in. It's not the right. It was Obama. His biographer, who is a liberal Democrat, has come out and said in his second term, Obama was obsessed with one thing and one thing only, and that was a nuclear deal with Iran. That he had a chance to go for affirmative action? No. Racial quotas? No. So-called a big civil rights bill? No. More economic money and aid, especially to black communities. They said that the left was pushing him. Democrats said, we've got a chance now. He didn't care for any of that. The only thing he cared about, everything was subsumed. Iran must have a path to the bomb. And we have to give them the billions of dollars in order to fund their terrorist proxies and to buy the components to get that bomb. So it's all come out now. And now that we're involved in a war with Iran, the left has sided with the mullahs all the way, to the point that now, and this is open. I mean, I'm talking about this is in the Iranian state media. This is reported all over the Middle East, never mind here or in other papers, where the IRGC has said, you want to know our strategy? Here's our strategy. Delay, obfuscate, stand up to Trump, wait it out until the Democrats come to power in November. And they're bragging. They say, what, you don't think we watch CNN? Like you think we're that stupid? You don't think we have CNN here in Tehran on satellite TV? You don't think we don't have MS Now on satellite TV? And NBC and CBS and ABC News? They said, we know the minute the Democrats win in November, then they are going to impeach Trump. They're going to defund Trump. They're going to end this war. Trump will have no money to wage this war. In fact, he'll be lucky if he's still president. And that's how we win. Period. End of story. We not only survive, the Americans have to go home. And we can continue with our ballistic missiles, with our nuclear program. We continue with everything. And we'll be partying in Tehran. And that's how they break the opposition. They'll say, you see, we took the best that America and Israel could hit us with, could throw at us. And not only are we standing, but the Yanks are going home with their tail between their legs. Thanks to the Democrats. They're openly saying it. I mean, it's not even a secret. And that's the split that Ken was talking about, the previous caller in the IRGC. You got basically half the leadership saying, you guys are crazy. We can't hold this thing out for another 4 or 5 months. We better make a deal now because our economy is going to crater before gas prices can get Democrats elected in November. And guys, they're going to hang us. Our people will hang us. And you've got the hardliners who are saying, no, we'll just shoot them. They come out and protest on the streets, we shoot. We massacre. But we're going to wait and wait and wait and wait because come November, with gas at $5-6 a gallon, and that's why they blocked the Strait of Hormuz. They said with high inflation, high gas prices, the way the American public is, we're looking at CNN, we see all the polls, the Democrats are going to win. And then the Democrats win, we win. Quote, I'll tell you what state media said in Iran. Quote, the Democrats are our insurance policy. Unquote. Unquote. Now, do you think in World War II that the Japanese or Hitler or Mussolini were saying, well, the Democrats, we just, FDR, he's our guy. No. Vietnam, no. Even Iraq and Afghanistan, even, Democrats that opposed the war, they weren't cheering for Saddam Hussein. They are now cheering for the Ayatollahs. Cheering. And again, they go on about the Handmaid's Tale, Tommy. They give it to the kids in schools, and this is what Republicans and conservatives want. Look what they want to do to women, the Handmaid's Tale. Yet they support the Iranians. They support Mamdani. They support radical Islamists right here in America who want to put women in a burqa, who want to enslave women, who murder gays and lesbians. This is how sick and perverted and twisted and contradictory the left has become. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. What's my enemy? America and the West. Well, you've met your ally in Iran. I'll tell you this. That's their friend. So we have a fifth column. That's what the Democrats have become. Let's be clear. They have become a fifth column. And Fetterman, who's a Democrat, he says, look, I caucus with them. I talk with them. I meet with them every day. The top leadership every day. He said, I'm a pro-union Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat. And he says, all they care about now is defending the radical Islamists, siding with Iran, and opening a border, abolish ICE. And I'm looking around, this is Fetterman, he says, they want to destroy my country. And you guys are wondering why Republicans keep winning elections? They have been hijacked by the most dangerous globalist communist elements, now Islamo-communist elements on the planet. And look at them. The fact now that Trump may be close to winning this war, even the fact now that he's maybe close to a negotiated settlement, the media hates it. Why would you hate it? Because they want Trump to lose. They want America and Trump to lose, and they want the mullahs to win. In plain English, they want the modern-day Hitler. They keep using Hitler. You want to know who's the real Hitler? The regime in Iran. They're as close to a fascist movement and a fascist party you will ever see in the 21st century. They're rooting for an actual Hitlerite regime to win. And by the way, they're backing a guy with a Nazi SS tattoo as their candidate for the Senate in Maine. As they call us Hitler. So this is the left in a nutshell. That's why when the mullahs go down, it will be akin to the victory of the Cold War. When the Soviet regime fell, it was a massive victory for freedom and the United States. When the mullahs go down, it will be a massive victory for the United States and the free world. And honestly, the left may never recover. Tommy, as always, great call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Will Iran ever agree to a deal? It's a very tough question. It's on the surface, I think it appears easy. No, right? But think about it. Anyway, will Iran ever agree to a deal? And what I mean by Iran is obviously not the people. They want a pro-American, pro-Western government. They would sign a deal today, yesterday. I'm talking about the leadership, the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. Yes, they will be, whether they want to or not, they'll be forced to a deal. Yes, B, no. I'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Just so that you know, the foreign minister of Iran, who, by the way, I can't stand, glib, arrogant, full of himself, smug, but he's semi-sane. He's one of the pragmatists that wants to make a deal. And the IRGC can't stand him. In fact, if you look at the Iranian media, the official media is praising him. His last name is Aragachi, I believe is how you pronounce it. Aragh or Chi. Anyway, but there's another media outlet in Iran that's really the mouthpiece for the IRGC. And they're attacking him, openly attacking him as an appeaser, as a sellout, as a toady of the United States. So the foreign minister, who's negotiating behind the scenes, wants to make a deal. The president of Iran wants to make a deal. And what they are is they're survivors. They're opportunists. They don't want to be hanged. They realize the regime may collapse, and if it collapses, they're gone. They're going to be killed. And then you have the hardliners in the IRGC, who are fight to the death, fight to the end, we can win this, just wait them out, wait them out, wait them out. So there's so much pressure now on the regime. I think the wild card is going to be the people of Iran. If they're getting armed and you see them pouring back into the streets, they will sign a deal. Because they just can't fight on so many fronts. They'll just collapse on itself. They'll just collapse. So you can't. You can't have an imploding economy, your military collapsing, your soldiers not being paid, and then your own people rising up against you, especially if some of them are armed. So now you got street battles. If the people stay, for whatever reason, in their homes and don't take it to the streets, Trump may have no choice to deliver what's called the final blow. So just so that you know, CENTCOM, U.S. Central Command, which is overseeing this war in Iran, has given the president, this came out over the weekend, a final battle or military operation. It's called the final blow, in which they've given him the plans to resume a massive air missile campaign that would finish off the rest of Iran's military capability. Iran would have nothing left. Nothing left. And apparently they want to also bomb the enriched uranium, which is buried really under two mountains. But this time, bomb it so badly that they'll just utterly destroy it. And it'll make the ground underneath very radioactive, but basically saying, look, forget it. We're not going to negotiate to dig it up and extract it. We're just going to bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb until we just literally just turn it into absolute dust. So the president has that in his back pocket. And that's why he's telling the mullahs, my patience is not infinite. I don't want to do this the hard way. I don't want to do, permanent damage to Iran. But you guys keep holding back. You keep, not wanting to negotiate. You're going to get the final blow. And so Trump now may have to deliver the final blow. We shall see. 617-266-6868 is the number. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy, how are you, my friend?
Doing very well, Jeff. Doing very well. I think, Jeff, it's not really a question of give peace a chance as much as it's a question of give economic warfare a chance. And I like what I'm hearing on that front because it seems like Trump is regaining the economic warfare that was achieved in Trump 1.0. And that's very important. And we have the history now. Every time that economic warfare has been disrupted, the mullahs have just been enabled all over again. And the Republican side has to be smart politically to remind the American people if the Democrats get back in power, that's only going to enable these people all over again. And the history's there to prove it. Also, I really like what I hear about what Trump's saying about arming the Iranian people on the ground, Second Amendment style. And I think Tommy in Brockton is a genius about his position of dropping pallets of arms in the urban area. And I think also, Jeff, I think there's a chance of something even more wonderful happening, and that's the rebirth of the Green Movement in Iran. If that happens, and if this time they're armed, then it is going to be game over with these mullahs. And also, because we all know the Persian people are a very proud people, if they can have a meaningful opportunity now of fighting for their own country, that I think that might seal the deal, my friend.
I think you're right, Andy. Andy, I got to ask you this. I'm just looking at the poll question, will Iran ever agree to a deal? And the audience, basically, it's a little bit less than 75%. I think it's at 72, 73, but essentially, I'm just simplifying it, 3/4 of the audience says no. Now, that being the case, is Trump making a mistake by pushing these negotiations, pausing Project Freedom, holding back on resuming the bombing, the final blow, as it's being called, the final massive military offensive from the air, from the sea, through missiles? In other words, should Trump just finish it? Or do you think it's better for him to at least have to try to make peace diplomatically before he resumes the war one more time? What say you?
Okay, and on that front, Jeff, because see, one of the problems, Jeff, is we don't understand the Muslim mindset. See, we tend to look at it through the lens of our Western thinking that, why don't they just take the deal? It's common sense for them to take the deal, but we've got to...
Andy, hang on. I really want you to finish your thought. That's fascinating. Okay, many of you in Kuhner country feel that Iran is never going to, the leadership, to be specific, the regime, is never going to agree to a deal. And so my question is, if that is the case, is Trump, in your view, is he making a mistake in pausing Project Freedom? And in fact, not even pausing Project Freedom, but refusing, at least for now, to resume the air, sea, bombing missile campaign to finish them off. Is he playing into the mullah's hands, who simply want to delay until the midterms? In other words, should he just not negotiate at all and finish them off as quickly as possible. Let's go right back to Andy in Milford. Andy, you were making the point, and we had to go to break, that we don't understand in the West the Muslim mindset. We see everything as obviously as Westerners do, very rational, very logical. In a sense, what's good for me, what's good for you, everybody's got to win in a deal. And that by looking at it through Western eyes, take the deal, it's good for everybody, we're not quite grasping the nature of this regime and the nature of the Muslim mindset. Please pick up where you left off, Andy.
Yes, Jeff. That is... See, we don't understand the Muslim mindset. These mullahs, Jeff, see themselves as ushering in the end of days and bringing about that 12th imam. Okay, that's what they see themselves as doing, and so they're not even coming at it from the standpoint of a rational mindset, because that's how they see themselves. And the other thing, too, Jeff, is we could have a resolution and we could be 30 years removed from this whole affair, and still, in the Muslim mindset, it would not go the way of let bygones be bygones. Their mindset would be, we will get our revenge, in this case against the great Satan, no matter how long it takes. And that's why I think it's extremely important that we go the route of arming and enabling the Iranian opposition on the ground so they can rise up and take back their own country. And their agenda will be to get rid of these mullahs altogether, and the Persian people having their culture and their civilization under a Western-style democracy.
Interesting. Andy, negotiating, in other words, I'm asking this then, negotiating with the mullahs, does that buy Trump time to arm the opposition? Is that what's really going on here? Or do you think it's just fruitless and a waste of time?
I think possibly it buys time. I think, though, President Trump has to be extremely careful, Jeff, not to give up that economic leverage, because it's clear that economic warfare is working. That's not something he wants to give up easily.
I agree. Oh, they're cracking. No, it's like I said earlier, Andy, it's like a vice grip. And he's just tightening it now, and you can see they're starting to crack. There's no question. Andy, always very thoughtful call. Thank you so much for that call. Okay, basically Andy's saying, yeah, give it a little bit more time, but Trump should finish the job. In other words, don't rely too much on negotiations. And if you're going to overthrow the mullahs, let the Iranian people do it on their own. Agree, disagree. Bill in Sudbury. Bill, you were mentioned earlier by Tommy in Brockton. I'm sure you want to respond. How are you, Bill? And the floor is yours.
I'm doing just fine. You know how you get to be a liberal moonbat, groomer, communist trader in America today? You think that Iran really hasn't worked out like he said it would. Maybe we shouldn't have raised the price of everything, and we probably should have stayed friends with Canada. That's what makes you a crazy liberal moonbat these days. And you guys can make me so uncomfortable when you talk about the election in relation to the war. You are basically now saying that he should flatten the country.
Bill, we're up against a break. Do you want to hang on? Okay, let's go right back to Bill in Sudbury. Bill, do we have you?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Bill, first of all, and I think you'd have to agree with this, Bill, you are a big supporter of Joe Biden. In fact, I don't think you ever said a critical word about him.
Yeah, the strait was open
hold
under
on,
him.
Bill, let me just finish. You never criticized Biden when inflation went through the roof. Forget a war. Biden's own policies led to $5 a gallon gas. So when we were having surging prices and inflation all across the country, you said we were living in a golden era. You said this was Build Back Better. You said that we just had to suck it up. So who are you now to complain about inflation and high gas prices after what you did to us under Biden? So that's why nobody takes you seriously about your complaint about high gas prices now. Because when it was done in the name of climate change, in the name of forcing people like me to not use gas-driven cars and buy one of these ridiculous EVs that Biden was trying to force everybody to buy, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, you were all for it. So with all due respect, you're a phony and a fraud and a hypocrite. You don't give a damn about high gas prices, so don't pretend that you do. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, in this clash between Iran and the United States, why don't you just be open and honest? The Democrats are cheering for Iran. That was Tommy and Brockton's point. You want the mullahs to win because you want Trump to lose, because you hate him that much. And you're getting in bed with a regime that sends 8-year-old boys to clear mines, to blow themselves up to clear a minefield. One of the most brutal, sadistic, terrorist-sponsoring regimes on the face of the earth. So my question to you is, why do you hate your country so much that you are willing to openly side with the Ayatollahs? Could you answer me that question?
But MAGA never meant a word of what they said. It was all just a momentary pose. And the minute that Jesus winked at you, you would all flip because none of you really meant any of it.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm asking you to answer my question. Okay, so just answer my question.
This is what you do.
Why do you side? No, you always side with either adversaries, competitors, or mortal enemies of the United States against America.
Yeah,
Here, you go on about Canada. Well, everybody wants good relations with Canada. Hell, I'm a former Canadian. I have family in Canada. I still have property in Canada. Unlike you, I pay taxes to the Canadian government. But is it right for Canada to impose a 270% tariff on our dairy products? 250% on eggs? 150% on our cars? 100% on our timber? And we're not supposed to charge them anything in return? So what? We're supposed to what? Just take it on the chin? And have the Canadians take advantage of us? And do tremendous harm to our industries here? Wisconsin farmers, dairy makers, the timber industry, our car manufacturers, they've been complaining about this for decades, that the Canadians have been taking advantage of first NAFTA and now the USMCA. So when Trump says a 25% tariff, which, by the way, the Canadians are still winning, you call and say, oh, you guys don't want to be friends with Canada. I'm like, no, we want to put American interests first. Yet you side with Canada. Now, I'm just giving you your example that you called before the break. Now, I'm asking you about Iran. They are the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. They have murdered thousands of American troops in Iraq. They have waged a insurgency against this country going back 50 years. The slogan of the regime is death to America. Literally, death to America. And you side with them? I mean, do you understand how insane that is? Go ahead. Final word to you, Bill.
True. When we weren't at war with them. Which part of that wasn't true when the strait was open? You're saying what you're saying now is that we should flatten that country. We should finish the job because it's going to help them in the election. And that is so distasteful. That is so disrespectful of America and the military. That is the worst thing you could be saying. And by the way, the other option for you is Iran was vitally important and we had to do it unless it hurts them in the election, and then we should turn around and come home. That is so distasteful.
No, if you want my position, and that's what I mean, Bill. You call this show, and honestly, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. You always flip it against me.
No, you don't, because what's my position on the war, Bill?
Well, you basically have the exact same position that I told you on the very first day of the war.
Okay, Bill. So you don't know my position. You don't know my position on the war. Okay, so let that go. Listen, Bill. To destroy the remaining 15% of Iran's military is not to flatten another country. You see, in your mind and in the Democrat Moonbat mind, you conflate the Iranian regime and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps with the people of Iran. I don't. I side with the people of Iran who despise that Islamo-fascist regime. The regime, by the way, that your guy Obama wanted to nuke to the teeth. That your guy Obama sent billions and billions of dollars illegally, I may add, in pallets so that they can continue to buy nuclear components and fund terrorists. And you supported him all the way, so don't lie about that now. You conflate the regime with the people. I don't. So to flatten the rest of the Iranian military is not to flatten the country. In fact, if you know anything about what's happening in Iran, it's video after video after video of Iranians on the street saying, please resume the bombing. Please don't let up. Please finish off the Ayatollahs once and for all. They have been enslaving and oppressing us for nearly 50 years. But who brought the Ayatollahs to power, Bill? A Democrat, Jimmy Carter. Who betrayed the Iranian people during the Green Movement when they had the Ayatollahs on the ropes? Your Messiah, Barack Hussein Obama. Who gave them the billions of dollars? Obama. Who put them on the path to a nuclear bomb? Obama. Who continued to put them on the path to a nuclear bomb, to the point now that they almost hit a breakout phase, which is why they had to bomb last year. Your guy, Joe Biden. So, you see, Bill, the Democrats, like you, have been trying to give Iran the bomb. And I think what you're really upset about, and you don't want to admit it, is that now your dreams of empowering radical Islam are now coming to an end. Everything Obama did, Trump is undoing. And that's why you really hate him. And I just want to say one last thing, Bill. Forget about whether we want to flatten Iran or not, because we don't. We love Iran. We love the Iranian people. It's the regime we can't stand. But you know, Bill, I've never called for you to be shot or murdered. I've never called for a Democrat or a liberal to be shot or murdered. But you call this show, and you have called for me to be murdered. You have called for this audience to be murdered. You have called for us to be shot and for me to be taken off the air. In other words, you're just like the mullahs, Bill. And I think that's why you liberals love them so much. Because you're both totalitarian thugs. You don't know how to deal with opposition or dissent or disagreement. Except one way and only one way. The barrel of a gun. Well, I got news for you. The mullahs now are about to fall. And the Democrats are about to fall as well. Your days are coming to an end, Bill. Liberalism is dying. And it's dying because of people like you. But thank you for that call, Bill. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mike, how much time do I have left? All right. Who do you want me to go to next? Eddie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Hey, Kuhner, man. Good morning, Kuhner, man. Eddie, Sebago Lake, Maine. How you
Eddie, how are you, my friend?
doing? I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Oh, God, every time I hear that Bill speak, I have one uncle. I swear they're brothers from different mothers. I swear to God. Oh, my God.
You see how easy it is to destroy them? I mean, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, Eddie, you know? I mean, it just, and, you know, they don't hear themselves. If they actually heard themselves, they'd realize how crazy they sound. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to play two clips because, and I mentioned this on X yesterday, not only is Trump clearly now beginning to truly outmaneuver the Iranians, you're starting to see it in terms of the blockade that he imposed, Project Freedom, now the economic warfare that he is now leveling against the Iranian, against the Ayatollahs and the IRGC, and now this campaign to secretly arm the people of Iran. So it's maximum pressure on every front. But here, the Democrats have been looking for Trump's scalp. And one of the ways they thought they were going to get it was through the War Powers Act, which gives the president 60 days to act unilaterally as the commander-in-chief if he believes it's in the American, if it's in America's vital national interest. Well, the clock was ticking, and the Democrats were waiting for day 61 to then say, aha, either you come to Congress and get authorization, or your war is illegal and unconstitutional, and we now have grounds to impeach. Well, President Trump and Marco Rubio have now announced that Operation Epic Fury is over. Over. And they have given official notice to Congress that that phase of the campaign is now done. It is completed. So you know what that means? Project Freedom is now the next phase. So the clock stops ticking and now goes back to the beginning. They can't use the War Powers Act. Trump has outmaneuvered the Democrats, as I said on X, brilliantly. Absolute genius. Listen now to Rubio. And the press corps was not happy. They were going, well, the War Powers Act, the War Powers Resolution, it's up now, it's up. And listen to Rubio's response. Roll cut 2, Mike.
If the fighting resumes, are you saying that it would resume under Project Freedom? And I ask, as it relates to the War Powers Act.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. And he preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting. That's the route he prefers. That is so far not the route that Iran has chosen.
So Operation Epic Fury is over. You don't need to, you can't invoke the War Powers Act. We've moved on. We want to reopen the strait and get a negotiated settlement. Now, listen to Rubio hammer the point, saying the operation is over. We have notified Congress. It's done. So you can try to apply it all you want. We've moved on to Project Freedom. Roll cut 4B, Mike.
The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this Project of Freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out, that has to be addressed. And that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the president and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other.
There you go. So, again, it's now game, set, and match. And now Trump has reset the clock. And basically, he's going to give the mullahs a couple more days. If not, he's going to now resume Project Freedom. And if need be, launch the final operation, the final blow. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go to Mike. Who do you want me to go to? Peter in Rutland. Thanks for holding, Peter, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Peter.
Long time, many times I've talked to you in the past.
Welcome,
all I can tell you, and I want your opinion on this because you are a man of history, and I think the big problem with a lot of Americans are their inability to pick up a book and study the past histories on how we got to be the country that we are. And one of the things that really, you know what, I'm in fear that this country is so fragmented to the point where the Congress can't seem to get anything done. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And you know what? We contained the Soviet Union. George Kennan came out with a plan. They said, okay, we're not going to beat the Soviet Union, all right, but we can contain them. And, it took a while, but you know what? In 1989, it happened. So why can't we do something like that to Iran? But here's what's happening is that the people and the people representing us down in Congress are so fragmented. They have absolutely, I don't even know how to say this. They don't care about the safety of the United States or the national security interests because they just, they're not functioning. And there's no functionality down in Congress anymore. And you can see this in everything they try to do, the SAFE Act. There just seems to be absolutely no way they can come together. And you know what? After World War II, Americans generally came together and they agreed, all right, Soviet Union was a threat to the United States of America. We put a containment package in there. It took till 1989. My suggestion to you is, and I'd love you to comment on this, why can't we do a George Kennan thing and basically come together as a nation and say, all right, Iran is not good, and it's not good for the Europeans either, and the Europeans are just as bad. But there should be some type of a unified containment, just like we did with the Soviet Union, to squeeze them and make their country not function. And don't invite. Why would you wouldn't invite somebody into your house that was going to destroy your house? So same thing with Iran right now. And Iran is not only a threat to the United States, it's a direct threat to the European Union. And if they get a nuclear weapon, oh my God. So I'd like you to comment on that. Why can't we do a George Kennan?
Peter, look, the simple answer is, and I'm being as serious as I can possibly be. That's why I have Bill in Sudbury on the air. I don't have him on the air for his expert analysis, believe me. And I know many people say, oh, I hate it when you have him on the air. I'm like, no, you have to hear him. He represents the typical Democrat in Congress. What you hear from him, they're all Democrat talking points. It's what the DNC spouts. It's what the CNN, MS Now, the media, the liberal Democrat media spouts. It's what members of Congress spout. So just listen to him. Is this a man who loves his country? No. Is this a man, he's not a FDR Truman Democrat. He's not the Democrats of the post-World War II era who were deeply patriotic, who loved our country. Yeah, they had disagreements with Republicans, sure. Mostly on taxes and certain programs. But that was it. But for the love of their country, the love of the Constitution, the love of the Bill of Rights, the love of America and American interests, they were united shoulder to shoulder. So you look at someone like Bill, and it's really pick door one or pick door two. Either they're communist, and that's what he really is. He's a communist fanatic. And they have to toe the party line. And they hate the United States and everything it stands for. Remember what Biden campaigned on. Remember, this was the slogan of his entire administration. Build back better. Meaning destroy. Destroy that everything America was and had been. And then we're going to build it back. Build it back to what? Towards socialism. Okay, towards this new globalist, socialist, so-called utopia. And that's what he tried to do. So with people like that, they're not going to unify on anything. In fact, as you hear it from Bill, they openly side with the mullahs in Tehran. You say finish off the military, they say you're killing the country. In other words, the mullahs are Iran. The IRGC is Iran. So this is the problem that we face. It's a kind of self-hatred. When you hate your country that much, because you hate yourself that much, because remember, you have to understand, their brain is marinated. We were slaves. We were a slave-holding nation. We're a white supremacist nation. We're a colonial nation. We're a homophobic nation. So in other words, we're a bad, evil country. Well, you don't want to support a bad, evil country. You want to destroy a bad, evil country. And so their mind is so polluted with this hatred of themselves and of America and of the West. They don't want to contain Iran. They don't want to bring the mullahs to their knees. They think the mullahs are right. That's the problem. And that's why I'm telling you, there are still many good Democrats left. And they're all turning in their, they're all literally, here, I use Fetterman as an example, but there are many others. And they say the party has left me. I don't recognize this party anymore. So that's the problem, Peter. It's, it takes two to tango. We want to unify. They don't. In fact, when you listen to a Bill in Sudbury, he hates us more than the mullahs. So that tells you everything you need to know. We are the enemy. For him and the Democrats, we are the enemy. Not communist China, not radical Islam, not Iran, or any of the other threats that we face. Not the narco-terrorists, not fentanyl, not drugs, not illegal aliens. No, it's you, it's me, it's this audience. It's conservatives. So that's the problem, Peter. And until we address this fifth column within our country, and that's what it is now, it's a fifth column, we are never going to be united. In fact, if anything, we're breaking apart. Slowly but surely, we are breaking apart. And that's why we need to win the midterm elections. Because if they come back, ay, ay, ay. That's all just ay, ay, ay. Trump, it's not just Trump that's going to be in trouble. The country is going to be in serious trouble. Peter, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. The Democratic Party has gone from being Democrats to communists. And now it's not even communists. It's now increasingly Islamo-communists. And Mamdani is Exhibit A. All right, joining me now is Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, my wonderful wife, my better half. Grace, I got to ask you before we even get to the topic of the day, how is your older sister Anne-Marie doing? Is she doing better?
She's doing much, much better. We're all breathing a huge sigh of relief, and I want to extend a really warm thank you to Sandy, who pinched in for us at such short notice, and she does it with such grace and beauty and poise and warmth, and I just want to say how deeply grateful I am, and everybody is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, ditto. Okay, Grace, I've got to ask you, President Trump now has paused Project Freedom. They were beginning to break the Strait of Hormuz, or at least the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranian regime. The U.S. ships were starting to escort commercial vessels, U.S. flagged vessels. They were getting them through. It was a trickle, but they were starting to get them through. They have carved out a lane for these ships to use. Iran began to try to attack our ships. They were shot down, their cruise missiles and drones. They then launched an attack on the United Arab Emirates. They hit a critical oil hub. UAE now may be launching airstrikes on Iran. Trump is telling them to hold off for now. Is the ceasefire over, A? And B, are we now watching the end of the Iranian regime as the blockade slowly now squeezes their economy?
Well, Jeff, in fairness, there never really was a ceasefire that was authentic. The Iranians had never stopped their acts of war. And in fact, one of the key provisions of the ceasefire was that they had to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. So if we backtrack for a moment, the president had a national address. He wanted to bomb for a couple more weeks in order to finish the original mission as he envisioned it. Then he decided to accept a ceasefire. But the ceasefire was based on Iran opening the strait. They never did that. And it's a mystery to me why he didn't immediately resume bombing at that time. So I think we've seen so many fits and starts throughout this war. Even now, we had a very bizarre declaration that the military operation is over. Epic Fury is over, said Marco Rubio. That operation is over. Now we're starting a new one called Project Freedom. And Rubio said that basically we've won, and he changed the definition of victory because now the goal was simply to remove the conventional shield of the ballistic missiles that block action on the nuclear program. So my point is, Jeff, there never has been a ceasefire with them. They're at war with us. We continue to be at war with them. And the problem is that the president has engaged in too many half measures. I think he's got to make a decision and go all in on one plan, whatever that plan is. But by constantly starting and stopping, I do not think it's very good for us as a country. I think it's kind of humiliating when it looks like we're being run roughshod by Iran playing games with us, and we seem to be embroiled in the Middle Eastern snake pit here.
Well, what do you say to the argument that, I mean, the war is going to come to an end? You now have a serious split within the IRGC. You've got real economic hardship taking hold in Iran. The strait now is starting to be pried open. They can't keep their blockade. They can't keep it going much longer. Our blockade has cut off all of or most of their oil exports. They can't even pay their soldiers anymore. That this can't go on for much longer. Maybe another couple of weeks, maybe another month, maybe 2 months tops. But in the end, the mullahs are going to have to capitulate. What do you say to the argument that President Trump, before he resumes bombing, which would finish off what's left of the Iranian military, wants to give diplomacy one last chance? In other words, you know, I don't want to kill any more people. He's a humanitarian. He doesn't want to do any more damage or destruction. Iran's already been badly battered by the bombing campaign, and that this is an act of humane decency on the part of Trump before, if he has to go to war again, then the world will say, well, the mullahs had their chance and they blew it. What do you say to that argument?
Well, Jeff, none of it makes sense because what Marco Rubio said yesterday is that Operation Epic Fury is over, and they're going to try now to negotiate regarding the enriched uranium. So we're back to where we started, trying to get a diplomatic solution. That's where we were before they even launched any military action. So the question we have is, so what have you achieved then? At this point, the upshot is that the president hasn't satisfied the war party, and he certainly hasn't satisfied the anti-war party. And the danger that he faces is that he's going to go into a very, very critical midterm without enough support, even from MAGA, which is disaffected with how he's conducted this whole thing. You know, we told him from the beginning that this is going to be extremely difficult. It's very difficult to deal with a country of that size and a country that's sophisticated and that shrewd. So all we keep hearing is that we've won and that this thing is over, but every week it goes on and the definitions change. So I mean, I think it's causing the president a tremendous amount of heartburn, as we can all see, and it's not good for him. And that's my concern, because he's losing his reputation as somebody who is competent, can get things done very effectively, because he keeps changing the strategy every day, every second day. He literally just contradicted what Marco Rubio said yesterday. Marco Rubio announced a whole new operation, and now it's paused again. So what are we doing? We're really playing footsie here. I think the president is damaging his credibility as somebody who says the truth and as somebody who is competent. In both of those regards, he's really treading water. And my concern is that it's all going to come back to bite him in the midterms, and we're all going to suffer for it. So I just wish that they would have one strategy, stick to it, whatever it is. At this point, we're seeing the worst of all possible worlds. As Winston Churchill said, in war, half measures are the worst. So we keep going from we want diplomacy to we're going to bomb this civilization out of existence to now we want to be nice again. I mean, which is it? Are we at war or are we trying the diplomatic solution? They have to make one plan, one decision, and they have to stick to it and finally end this thing. And what we're seeing is every day they're shifting between one approach and then going back to the other approach, and the Iranians are basically playing them. That's how I see it. They keep playing for time. They keep holding out a carrot. Hey, what about we give you this? You want to start negotiating again? And they're dragging it out because they know that the president has a timeline with the American public.
Grace, speaking of that timeline, and we've got how much time left, Mike? All right, 30 seconds. It's got to be super quick. Do you think gas prices will still be high by November, by the time of the midterms? Very quick.
Yes, I do. Because, yes, I do. Even if...
Okay, so yes. You know, Mike, no, you couldn't have given her 20 more seconds, Mike. I mean, God forbid you should have given her 20 more seconds. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you, because I think this is going to be a huge question hanging over Trump and his administration throughout the summer and heading into the fall. Will gas prices come down? Or at least come down enough so that Trump will win the midterms in November? Or do you think we will be going into November with, say, $4.50 or $5 a gallon gas? That, I think, now is politically where Trump is potentially vulnerable to the Democrats. And it's, as I've been talking all morning, the mullahs know this, and they're openly saying that they're depending on the Democrats to be their insurance policy. That they want gas prices, energy prices to stay high. That's why they've blocked the Strait of Hormuz in order to help the Democrats win the midterms. And then they can sink Trump by constant impeachment and defunding the war. And this is the way the mullahs believe they can actually end up winning this war. So you're now seeing an unholy alliance between the Democratic Party and the mullahs in Tehran. It is sickening. It is disgusting. Frankly, it's treasonous. Now, on another front, the War Powers Act. I've talked about how by ending Operation Epic Fury and giving Congress official notice, and then pivoting to Project Freedom, which now has been paused because of these negotiations. But the point is, Congress now has been officially notified Operation Epic Fury is done. It's over. This now ends the clock ticking, the 60 days, and it can now reset if Trump wants to start another phase of the operation. To me, absolute genius move on his part. Absolute genius. Outmaneuvered the Democrats, and that's why they and the media are howling this morning. However, Rubio made a very interesting argument yesterday. and I want to play it, which is whatever you think about this maneuver by Trump to end Operation Epic Fury. Rubio says the War Powers Act, which, just so that everybody knows, states that the president has only 60 days to launch military strikes or a military operation without the approval of Congress if he believes there is an emergency or a direct, real threat, an immediate threat to American national interests. So he's got 60 days because, it takes time to go to Congress, have a debate, the country gets involved, then to have a vote. So, in other words, if there's an immediate threat, he can wait 60 days. 60 days is the maximum. And then he has to go to Congress. That's the War Powers Act. Rubio says it is unconstitutional. Listen to Rubio's response. The media is now saying, well, are you saying now this prevents the War Powers Act from being used? Roll cut 2B, Mike.
Does the White House believe that these votes coming up in Congress are a moot point then?
Look, guys, I love talking about this topic. It's about the War Powers Act. Yeah. Okay, I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask. All right, hold on. No, boy, you don't let me answer. I got to answer the question. Okay, and I love it. I'll tell you why I love it. Because even as a senator, I said something. The War Powers Act is unconstitutional, 100%. Now, this is not the position of me, not the position of the President of the United States now. This is the position of every single president that has occupied this position since the day that law passed. It's completely unconstitutional. Now, we comply with it in terms of notification because we want to preserve good relations with Congress, right? And we do that. But even as a senator, I would say that the War Powers Act is 100% unconstitutional.
Now, to hammer his point, he then says, look, I'm telling you, every president from Richard Nixon on, everyone, Republican, Democrat, has said it's unconstitutional. Don't just say it's Trump. It's every president. Roll cut 2C, Mike.
Some of you, whatever you want to say, but this is not this president's position. That has been the position of every single presidential administration since the day that law passes. An infringement on the president's constitutional powers. We don't acknowledge the law as constitutional. Nonetheless, we comply with elements of it for purposes of maintaining, good relations with Congress, and we want them to be involved, and we want them to be informed. I have gone on Capitol Hill, 4 times this year for all senators and all House members and Intel Committee and Gang of Eight. We want them to be involved in this.
So, but his point is, it is unconstitutional, and every administration has taken that position.
I know some of you, whatever you want to say, but this is not this president's position. That has been the position of every single presidential administration since the day that law passes. An infringement on the president's constitutional powers. We don't acknowledge the law as constitutional. Nonetheless, we comply with elements of it for purposes of maintaining, good relations with Congress, and we want them to be involved, and we want them to be informed. I have gone on Capitol Hill, 4 times this year for all senators and all House members and Intel Committee and Gang of Eight. We want them to be involved in this, but I want to be clear on the point of the War Powers Act. It's unconstitutional, and every president and every administration has taken that position.
Now, by the way, 9:33 now, 9:32, my bad. 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Factually, what he said is right. The War Powers Act was implemented in the early 1970s. Nixon said it was unconstitutional. Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush 41, Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, Trump. Biden, who the hell knows? Because the guy was senile, so who knows what. I assume he thought it was unconstitutional because he did strikes as well. So every president, going back to the time it was enacted, has said the War Powers Act is unconstitutional. Now, as a texter just sent in from 781, Jeff, Obama bombed Libya for 7 consecutive months without congressional authorization. I didn't see Bill in Sudbury call in to complain, nor did any Democrat complain, and that is very true. Forget 60 days. That was over 6 months. So you see, when a Democrat goes to war or does a military operation, whatever you want to call it, then the War Powers Act ain't no good. Ain't no good. Ain't no work. Suddenly it's not necessary. But when Trump does it, they couldn't wait. Day 58, day 59, day 60. Come on. We impeach. Unless he goes to Congress. So the hypocrisy on the Democratic side, honestly, it's disgusting. As I said, if they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards. But to me, the larger philosophical issue or constitutional issue, I want to hear from you. If a president decides to launch a military operation, a bombing campaign, sustained missile strikes, okay, whatever. I'm not just talking Trump and Iran. Let's leave Trump and Iran out of it. Libya, Syria, whatever it may be. We keep doing them all over the world, president after president. Should the president have to go to Congress and get congressional approval? Or is Rubio right? Is it an infringement on the constitutional powers of the commander-in-chief? 617-266-6868 is the number. Paul in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
I've got an idea, and hopefully Trump's advisors are listening to this. In order to bypass the Democrats in November and their hope to have high gas prices cripple us in the midterms, and there's probably every likelihood, I don't care if the war ends tomorrow, because of the logistics of it, it's going to take several months for the gas prices to come down.
Yes.
So Trump needs to launch Operation Share the Pain, Share the Wealth. And he needs to do this with the support of Congress. He needs this to be brought by, the Republican coalition. And that is that we look for a windfall profits type tax, which although is somewhat unconstitutional against capitalism. Whenever oil prices, because of an act of war, are over, pick a number, $80, $90 a barrel, there's a tax that is transferred back to the government, and that tax is transferred back to the people with a debit card, and that debit card can only be used for gasoline or groceries. That would nullify all of the Democrats' argument. And more importantly, I would try and get the support of big oil to go along with this, because big oil is making a fortune with with oil prices this high. And they know as well as you do that if we lose the midterms and then we lose the 28 election, we're going back to the New Green Deal, and they're going to be in big trouble. So I think the conference that Trump had with big oil last week was talking about just that, and it would be a win-win-win even if we lost, because let's say that's proposed by Congress and the Democrats voted down. It would be the Democrats transferring some of the profits, the gross profits that we're getting, because big oil is getting rich right now because of $100 oil. They only need to make 50 or 60 to make shale, drilling profitable. And so it would be a good way of just boxing the Democrats in, and also helping people getting, let's say, a $500 or $1,000 debit card to help them offset the price of groceries and gas during this time of crisis. Do you think that's viable?
Well, I mean, Paul, it's interesting. It's a very interesting proposal. I don't think it would work. Not that it wouldn't work. I don't think it would pass Congress, because nobody wants to raise taxes right now. And I get it. The point would be to give people a debit card. It would go into the people's pockets so they can buy groceries and gas and help them through this difficult time. But nobody wants to raise taxes now with the economy. Not that it's doing badly. The latest numbers were pretty good. But you've got a potential global recession, energy prices going up all around the world. You don't want, in an economy now that is a little bit unstable, you don't want to raise taxes. There's no appetite for that.
But you wouldn't be raising taxes, though. The money would come from the profits that big oil is making. And I think that would show the public.
Oh, you want to tax big oil? I thought you wanted a tax at the pump.
Well, sharing some of the profits that they're making massive.
You want to tax big oil? That's what you're saying, right?
I want big oil to stand behind Trump and say we're going to go along with this for the good of the country because you need to win the midterms. And if the Democrats vote it down, if we don't get 60 votes, or if Thune plays his games and it does and dies, at least Trump will say, "Look, I tried. You know, you guys were always claiming that big oil and the billionaires are, raping us. Well, the billionaires are standing up saying, we're going to share some of the profits during this time of war. So it's a win-win-win."
No, I hear you. I honestly, I don't see ExxonMobil or Shell or Texaco or any. I don't see any of them agreeing to that. They don't want to share their profits. I hear what your argument's a very rational one, which is you better share the profits because you got AOC is going to be coming down the pike. You're going to have AOC down your throat, and you're going to have no profits. So I understand where you're coming from, but I don't see big oil agreeing to this. I wish they would, but no, they're not going to agree to this. No, I think, and that's the pressure Trump feels. He wants to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. The sooner, the better. Because you're right, it will take a couple months. But, we're still in early May. So say, the strait is restored by July, August, and ships are going through and prices start to go down and go down and go down. Well, now by September and October, you've got gas plummeting. People see, hey, we've turned a corner. Then Trump's chances look a hell of a lot better. That's why right now it's a race against the clock. And I think to be fair to Trump, I know Grace was hard on him about half measures, and she's generally right. In war, you don't want to do half measures. But the reason why Trump keeps hoping for negotiations to work out is because it's so much easier and simpler if the mullahs just say, cry uncle and say, okay, we'll open up the Strait of Hormuz. It's over. Fine. We'll hand over the enriched uranium in exchange for a good deal. So that's why Trump is hoping, he doesn't want to have to go back to the bombing and to have our vessels have to escort every ship. Eventually, he'll break the blockade. The blockade will break. The blockade will smash the regime. It will strangle them. But blockades take time. They're very effective, but they take time. In a way, if you would sit down with Trump right now and say, look, if you had it your way, would you have done the bombing in February 28, 2026 or February 28, 2027? If you could have waited a year, if the circumstances allowed you, in other words, get the midterms behind you and then do the bombing, I'm almost positive he would say, oh, yeah. Oh, because then I got time. That's everything. Because Iran can't defeat us. They just can't. The only thing they can do is maybe kick the can down the road and just drag it along, which is their strategy now, their obvious strategy. And that's why I'm angry at some of the president's advisors. And the biggest one is Lindsey Graham. Because they told him, they promised him, they guaranteed him a lightning war. Because Trump was saying, yeah, but this is going to lead to, high energy costs, high gas prices. Okay, as I was saying before Mike cut me off, never trust Lindsey Graham. To me, when he says it's going to be a quick, easy war, no. No, just kick him out of the room. Never trust Lindsey Grahamnesty on anything, especially when it comes to war. Now, just very quick, as many of you are texting the Kuhner man, the War Powers Act was passed in November, I believe November 7th, 1973. It was vetoed by Nixon. Nixon vetoed it. And he was overruled. His veto was overruled by 2/3 in the House and 2/3 in the Senate. And that's how it became law. And again, as Rubio has said, every president since Nixon has said it is an unconstitutional infringement on the powers of the commander-in-chief. I personally believe it is clearly unconstitutional. I think there's no question it's unconstitutional. And instead of just saying it's unconstitutional, I would love to see a president force the issue and take it to the Supreme Court. Especially, frankly, this Supreme Court. Because I think you're going to have 5 votes. Easy. Maybe even 6 with John Roberts. But definitely 5 votes. And just shooting it down, saying it is illegal, unconstitutional, an infringement, a violation of the president's powers as commander-in-chief. And you'll Alito, Clarence Thomas, right across the board, Neil Gorsuch, all of them, Brett Kavanaugh, all of them, Amy Coney Barrett. I think you'll see 5 easy votes to declare it unconstitutional, maybe even 6-3 with Roberts. But anyway, that's up to the administration. 617-266-6868. Rob in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Listen, Jeff, in full disclosure, I love you, but just not in the sense of a prison cellmate. So my point, I agree with Dr. Grace 100%, but let me take it a step further. I watch a lot of newscasts for economic analysis, petroleum analysis, especially like if you watch CNBC, if you're into trading stocks and so forth. Every analyst that they've had on, whether it's from the weapons manufacturing industry, the petroleum industry, energy industry, economic industry, farming industry, have all said the same thing. If this war ends tomorrow, you're going to see $4 a gallon well into 2027. Every one of them. The point is you have a completely different narrative from the administration versus the people that are out in the economy, in the business world, that are giving us the information on what's going to happen. It's a cumulative effect, notwithstanding the fact that, put energy aside, let's look at the situation with the restriction on fertilizer. You have farming people coming in saying, if we don't have fertilizer by May, you're going to see a world economic problem in terms of food. So, and one further point. I'm heavily connected in the marine industry and have been for the entire of my adult life. The marine industry was well behind Trump on both elections. He's lost them. We're looking at $6 a gallon for the boating industry. The boating industry spends a lot of money traveling, buying things, food, souvenirs, dock space, things of that nature. He's lost them. Everybody in my marina that was 100% Trump, they're slamming him now. He's lost them. My prediction is we're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. And this war, in my opinion, when you had all the different intelligence agencies saying, Iran's not an imminent threat. 6 months ago you said you bombed them into the Stone Age. Now we're going back. We've been played by Benjamin Netanyahu. And this thing is not going to end easily. And the pain that the United States is going to suffer in the world for that, for that fact, it's not going to end. And one of the things that really bothers me right now, the Strait of Hormuz is being held up by nitwits on little boats with outboard motors. We sunk their Navy. You've got guys on little speedboats that basically an Aborigine could sink these boats with one shot with a dot from a blowgun. And the American Navy cannot unblock the strait. So you have to look at all of these facts, cooperatively, Jeff. And to me, it seems like we're not going to see fuel below $4 a gallon, and that's the defining point.
Rob, that's why I opposed the war at the beginning, right from the beginning. I said I was a skeptic of this war. And I said the reason why is because Iran is a big country. I think the regime is more entrenched than people believe, and I believe it's going to cost us the midterms. because it's going to lead to higher energy prices, gas prices, oil prices, that this is not going to be a 2-week cakewalk like his people sold to him.